No, I know exactly what you mean. Like, I walk around and I'm like, right, where do I do this meeting? Is this like a book backdrop? Is this like, yeah, it's just like so hard to find the right space
Yeah.
that is like also set up. I'm just going to show you 1 second. Like
I was hoping
my
you would. I was
yeah,
hoping you
like
would.
this is like my mountain of cushions and pillows that mean that I've got you at like the right height. Yeah, it's a struggle
The
as well.
struggle is real. I'm saying I've never
Yeah,
had to think about, before COVID, like all we used to do is like if you've got a meeting,
yeah,
like Zoom was the posh meeting, you know what I mean?
yeah.
It's like it was special. But you never had to think about the framing of
No.
your call or your business. You just talk business.
Yeah. The
And
only
that,
thing you had to worry about was what you were going to wear. Like,
yeah,
that's literally like that was the presentation, and now it's the presentation of your whole house, isn't it?
suddenly you're being judged. The
Mm,
first thing you're being judged on isn't whether you can do the job, isn't
mhm.
how you present yourself, but it's what's in the background of your
It's awful, isn't
shop,
it?
which is really, really bad. Blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. How
No,
are you?
it is
How's your
real
week
though.
been?
Yeah,
What's going on?
doing all right. Yeah, not too bad. It's been a bit of a busy week, which is nice after so long of being quiet for so like
Yeah,
for an unnatural amount of time for me. But yeah, week's been all right. It's nice now. It's a little bit warmer. Definitely really enjoying having some sun over the last
great.
few days. Like that
You've got
massively.
sun.
Well, there was a bit like it was grey yesterday and grey today, but it was sunny at the start. And like yeah, over the weekend it was all right too.
Yeah, it was.
um
It was.
so
I'm
yeah,
joking.
that like massively changed my mood, because for weeks like we've just been surrounded by ice and it's
Yeah,
been
snow.
freezing and like really really cold. So now it's like yeah, pretty nice that it's warming up. I feel like spring's on its way, which
The
always cheers
snow
me.
must make a massive difference. I mean, people won't know by looking at you, but you
Mm.
live on a boat, right?
Yes, yeah, I do. Yeah. So last week the boat was literally just sitting on like an ice rink, and there were kids like walking on top of the ice and stuff, like the swans walking on top of it. There was no water, and
Wow.
it was just so odd, like walking in the boat, and you just every time you walk, because it moves when you're on it,
Of course.
and every time you walked, you could just hear the ice cracking around
Yeah.
you because it was like sealing to the boat, and then you'd move and it went. It was pretty cool. But yeah, this is my marina, so
Wow.
just live with that as a view, which
Incredible.
is yeah,
Incredible.
dead lovely. Definitely
Really,
amazing
really
summer.
nice. But
But
how do you
so,
heat? I mean, I am terrible for heating. Like, I'm a big baby. Like, when I was little, I got told off by my mum because I said I'd rather go to hell than heaven because it was hotter. Because I just
yeah,
really feel the cold. Like, I
yeah.
really, really feel the cold. And I know that's a bad thing to say, very blasphemous for a Catholic. But I always have to have like, even now I've been sleeping with two hot water bottles. So what's the heating situation on a houseboat? Because they're just
Yeah.
like, what's the, you know,
It's
what's the
cold.
griff?
Like Christmas Day, I woke up and I could see my breath. I was like, "Ooh, happy Christmas!" But basically, we've got fire going over there.
Oh
You can
wow,
see
it's a beautiful
roar,
place.
roaring away. And yeah, we're really lucky on this boat. We've got like kind of like central heating, I guess. It's like called an eberspatcher, and you basically fuel it with diesel, and that like heats 3 radiators up and down the boat. So it's quite a long boat. So when you're in the back in the bedroom, like the fire does not get there at all.
Right,
So the radiators look after down there.
right.
So yeah, it's good. It's good. It's
You're
I
scaring
stay
me.
I pretty much stay warm, like because I'm entirely the same as you. I need heat. Like
Yeah,
sun is like such a big part of my life, and heat.
yeah.
And so it is like the one kind of like downfall. But like some days when it was like snowing outside, it was 32 degrees in here because we had the fire blasting so much. Like it's hotter than the sun. Do you know what I mean? It's just like that morning time when you wake up and it's like, oh, a little bit chilly.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get
Yeah.
there eventually.
What made you decide to live on a boat instead of get a mortgage, get a house?
Yeah.
Like, what was that kind of pivotal moment in your life where you thought, no?
Yeah. Well, exactly that exact reason. Like, work is so busy, running around, all that sort of stuff, like, is, I think, just for my health, I was like quite often on the tip of burnout and like just tired. And I was looking at, because I've been renting obviously for years, was looking at kind of buying a house totally unaffordable in Manchester, but wasn't ready to leave Manchester as well, so wanted to stay here but wanted to stop paying rent. Then started looking at flats, and I was like, flats just don't fit with me. Like, I need outside space, like it's really important, along with sun, like nature, sun, adventure. It's like that's my reason for being. And a friend was selling this boat, and I was like, that could be interesting. So like did like a trial night stay on it, and I was like, that's the one. And I'd stayed with a friend in London like a couple of years previous and absolutely loved it. Like, I just stayed on the boat when she wasn't there for a week and like went to field day and stuff and just had like the best
So it
week
wasn't
ever.
just one day.
And I was like, yeah, so it wasn't just one day, but I mean it was only like a handful of days. And I was like, yeah, I can see me doing that. Like, it fits with the kind of adventure side of me, and that slowing down of life, and like that really small appreciation of how much water you use, how much electric you use, all that kind of stuff. I was like, yeah, this is the one. I'm gonna do it.
I was going to say, you've said judging how much like electric and water, and I assumed, because of the sort of person that I know you to be, I'm assuming that it's all going to be like sustainable, and or your practices are going to be as close to sustainable as you can get it, or is it possible to live a more sustainable life on a boat than in a house?
Yeah, 100%. Like, you're much more conscious of what you use every day, and I think there's some unsustainable parts of being on a boat, i.e. the coal fire in the corner that's blasting out. Like, coal, obviously non-renewable, but I think there are more and more options appearing on the market and stuff at the moment of how we can start to eradicate the coal fire but still have a fire, and so yeah, it's 100% more sustainable way of being, but could be more sustainable. And that's like what I'm now. I've got into the rhythm of it, because I've only been here like just over a year, so now I'm in the rhythm. I'm like, right, okay, how do I improve on this, and what's next in the kind of
that's very you.
Yeah. always going for the next.
Start small and going on to the next thing and on to the next thing. Tell me a little bit about what you do, and then we'll go into your career.
Okay, sweet. So
the big question. I'm not going to ask the question.
Like, where do you begin?
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
There's a lot to say. I've got the Magna Carta at the side.
Brilliant. I'll just wear a series of hats as I go through this story. No, I'm kidding.
You know what? That's the funniest idea. If I could make you wear a hat for everything you did, you'd have a stack of them.
Yeah, I'd be out the boat and it'd be covered with hats.
Right, crack on.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess in short, I call myself a freelance event producer, but it's so much, I guess, more than that. So currently I am a creative director of Sounds From the City Festival, which is a music, performance and art festival that takes place annually in Salford on the May Day bank holiday. And I've been doing that for 12 years of its 17-year history. So yeah, missed out on 5 of them at the start.
Awesome. But still.
So yeah, that's kind of like my biggest kind of passion, I guess, is sounds. I'm also director of a music residency program that I run with my colleague Emma, which came out of time that the two of us had spent at Islington Mill, which is a warehouse space in Salford. I'd been running the events program there, and she was the bar manager, and together we kind of hosted a lot of visual artist residencies, and both coming from music backgrounds, we'd seen like the benefit that these residencies had on artists, and we're like, why doesn't this exist for musicians? Like, this is criminal. Like, musicians have this trajectory of just like think of an album, record the album, release the album, tour the album,
And that's
think of
it.
the next album, and it's just like
The
this cycle. And even though obviously all of those things are a creative process, there's a pressure that comes with that process of there has to be an output. So we basically just wanted to give musicians time and space away from that kind of pressure, and paid opportunities just to spend 2 weeks, 3 weeks, however long, at Islington Mill. We looked after kind of like the technical side of it. We looked after like the hospitality side, so we cook dinner every single night, so they don't have to worry about a single thing other than just creating.
Yeah.
And even if that creation wasn't an output and was just sitting in a room and thinking, then that was equally as like bona fide as anything else. So yeah, we set up this music residency program in 2014.
What's
and
that called? Is that
it's called
the
samarbete, it's called, which is a Swedish word for to collaborate. So a lot of the residencies have featured collaboration, and it's something that's really important to both me and Emma as well. So it felt like a fitting name. So yeah, we're on residency 16 of that. We're about to launch it at the end of this month actually, which is our first international residency. So we're teaming up with a residency space in Japan, just outside of Tokyo, called Paradise Air. And a residency space in Liverpool called Metal, and then ourselves, and we're doing like a 3-way artist exchange.
Have you got all your artists together for that yet?
So yeah, we've got DRS, who's from Manchester, hip hop artist.
Yes.
And we've got an artist called MT Hall from Liverpool, who's kind of female producer, does lots of like beats and techno. And then an artist called Kimaya Soto from Japan, who plays a lot of kind of like classical instrumentation in quite an experimental way. So should be really interesting to see, like, not only is this like a meeting of totally different kind of literally areas in the world, but it's also totally different genres. So yeah, really excited to see what happens there.
It's just incredible. I'm watching your face, and your face just totally lit up. Like, you're talking about it, and just the buzz of the idea just illuminated your face. So
yeah,
you won't see that.
super,
I see that, but
that's good. No, because I just get really excited about giving platforms to musicians like that through everything I've done, from like starting off doing club and gig nights in Vanilla in the Village in 2005 to like now. The whole thing that I do is to just give platforms, and it really excites me when I see like artist response to stuff, and then crucially the audience response to that. It's like, wow, this is something like they wouldn't have done before, and now they have, and look how well it's gone down, or like look at what they've done in the aftermath of it and stuff like that. So yeah, that's why
I'm going to pick up the baton with that idea, and then we'll go back to your very lengthy list of responsibilities. But one thing that struck me with everything that you do is that you're very much a in one word I've got in my head is conduit, and the other is you're a lightning rod.
Wow.
So you're finding talent before everybody else, and then you're kind of, they're passing through you in order to get to other people. It's like completing the circuit. You're providing the switch to allow them or their art or their music to reach a wider audience or a different audience, and then you're also providing that that route for people like me to hear new things. And one of the massive criticisms I've had of festival and events organised and all that sort of thing is that they don't look outside the obvious. It's always the same people on the same lineups. So how important is it for you to find, like, to do something different, like, and how can you do it and they can't? Like, that's what I want to know.
Yeah, God, I don't know. Like, I mean, that's like, I feel like I'm gonna cry of that kind of like analogy. I love an analogy, and like that's like such a lovely and like, yeah, thought-provoking way of putting it, that I feel honored that you think that. Like, that's
no,
lovely.
I do. That's what that's my awareness of how you work and what I've seen and what I've heard. So
amazing.
all true.
But yeah, that like thinking outside the box is like imperative. Like, oh, once upon a time when like work was like struggling, I was like, right, I need to kind of build a website and like think about how I'm going to get these next roles, and maybe I need to set up a business. And like the business name that I came to was like outside the box. It's like the cheesiest thing ever, so I didn't go with it. But it's like that's how I feel like. It's imperative, because if you don't do that, nothing moves, everything becomes stagnant. It's like I look at the water around me, if the rain doesn't go in it, then nothing moves and it becomes smelly, and none of the birds want to come here and swim in it. So why would you do the same lineups? Because none of the audiences are going to want to come again after 2 years, because it's the same old, and there's none of that like there's no sustainability there whatsoever. In terms of giving people an opportunity. Like, it gets to a point where people don't need that opportunity, but other people do, if you know what I mean.
What is it that taps you into that seam of talent? Can you define it?
I don't know if I think it's just utter collaboration. Like I can't sit here and go, I have a formula for it and it's all about me. It's not. It's about conversations with people and like keeping in touch with people. And I feel like I have for me, having connections with artists is really important. And so I find a lot of music through artists who I've worked with and then like stay in touch with. And it's like, who's excited you? And it's, like Sounds, for example, like the whole kind of premise of that as a festival, which I think has informed my whole career, is that we basically offer promoters from Manchester, UK, even internationally, we offer them a space, i.e. a venue, and we give them a budget and we say, we don't care who you book, so long as you're excited by it. So here's your budget, here's your venue, here's how many acts we want, 5, 6, whatever. Deliver us a lineup by the 1st of February. Or whatever, and then they just go off and they come back and they've had a moment that they don't have to think about ticket sales, they don't have to think about any of the repercussions, and they just purely put their excitement on a page and deliver us 6 artists, and then we sell the tickets on the back of that. And it's a really risky formula, but I think when you get people who are just purely passionate about what they're putting forward, that's when real magic happens. And I think that's kind of how I've approached my whole career, is from that formula of Sounds. And it's like, if you're passionate about it, then I'm passionate about it, and then the audience are going to be passionate about it. Do you know what I mean? And it kind of it somehow works. I don't know, scientifically and on paper it sounds like madness, but it works.
So what else do you do?
What else? So I run a beer festival as well. So I'm a festival manager of a beer festival, which I think is great. I'm obsessed with food, and it's like food and drink is obviously preeminent to that. And it's at Victoria Baths, which is just like such a beautiful venue to work in. So the festival is called Indyman Beer Con, and it's kind of heralded as one of the best in the UK. It was definitely one of the very first craft beer festivals that started in 2012, and now obviously we have hundreds of them across the UK, more and more every day. So yeah, that's a real honour to kind of manage that and work with some of the best independent breweries in the UK and across the world. And yeah, for 4 days in October we bring like 10,000 people to Victoria Baths, and they all have a wonderful time just drinking these insane beers from across the world. So yeah, I manage that, and that kind of keeps me in touch with that kind of F&B kind of world, which is important to me. And I'm also the producer of Festival Square for Manchester International Festival, so which is how we kind of built our friendship and our relationship, and it's lovely. So yeah, I looked after that program in 2019, and I'm doing it again in 2021.
I am just absolutely blown away. Do you do all of this on your own, or have you got a team that supports you?
Yeah, teams in each sector, but I approach it all solo, if you know what I mean. So it's just me who enters a room, and then there's a team, and then I go away and I enter a different room or put a different hat on, and it's a different team. Luckily, like between Samabita and Sounds and Islington Mill, like it was quite a a similar team, I guess. So like me and Mark ran the club space, Emma was the manager, me and Mark now do Sounds from the City, and me and Emma do Samabita, and now Emma also works with Sounds, and so there's like crossover within that Salford circle of life, which is good. There's always crossover everywhere, because I just feel so fortunate to be surrounded by so many talented people that I'm like, oh, that was great, I'm going to bring you over here now, and can you take me over there? And it's all kind of one big collaborative family.
When you were younger, was that your motivation when you were at school and when you were at college, or even when you started work? Were you a collector of people and a collector of ideas, or were you very different?
Absolutely, I think, like, but always like from the sidelines. Like I think a lot of people who I've like worked with they probably don't even know who I am. Like they'll know a name, but they don't know who I am. Like I'm always very much a sideline person, and that's like, I like it like that. Is I'm an observer, and then I take the observations and like create. And I was like, definitely growing up, like 2 stories like spring to mind. So one, when I was like probably 8 or 9, I was in school, and I had all my friends growing up right from that age to 9. We're all boys, and I used to love playing football, and it got to a point where I'd moved into the second part of primary school, and they were like, right, you have to wear skirts in summer and dresses, or like skirts in winter and dresses in summer. And I was like, but I can't play football if I do that. What do you mean? And so I did like a school petition to wear culottes, so that it looked like a skirt but it was short, so I could still play football. And the head teacher was like, what do you mean you're doing a petition to wear culottes? So I was like, well, I can't play football. She's like, oh right, well yeah, of course you can wear culottes. And so I'd like made this like stance of, well, this is stopping me from doing what I need to do, and therefore I'm going to do something about it. And so loads of other girls who kind of like sometimes play football with me and stuff were like, yeah, we support you, I want to wear culottes too, that would be great. And so yeah, we made change, and now culottes went onto the school uniform list. And then I guess when I was like 18, I threw a festival for my birthday, because I'd missed out on going to Glastonbury that year because it was my A-levels. And I've been going to Glastonbury for like 5 years with my mum and stuff at that point. And I was like, I'm going to throw my own festival, and I'm going to call it Rivconbury, and I'm going to get 2 of my friends to play live and 1 of my friends to DJ, and it's going to be really fun. And so did this thing, and then my friend was DJ, and I was like, oh, this looks really fun, like how are you doing that, and what's happening there? And he basically then taught me how to DJ on my 18th birthday, and I hardly said hello to anyone else, and we just like threw a really great party. It felt like, now looking back, I had the radio like set on, and like I was talking to people, but I was focused on running. And it was like,
gonna say, did you actually enjoy your 18th birthday, or were you
absolutely
because one thing I've noticed about you, while whichever events I've been working with you on, is you can pass through a space that is full of people like smoke.
Okay, yeah.
Like, and the speed that you can get from one end of a room to another, and backstage to front of house, and technicals and everything, it's just like, you're like smoke, you're everywhere. It's just really funny. You won't notice because that's just what you do, but I know that I've been standing with you talking, and then you go.
I'm not sure if that's a good thing.
No, it really is. It really, well, I mean, or either that, or I'm really super boring.
Absolutely not. No, I'd love to chat to you for hours. I love it.
You said Glastonbury. So did Glastonbury in any way influence what you've done as a career?
Massively. Because I think the first one I went to, I was I just turned 14, so only just, and I remember like setting up a tent and hearing this insanely loud music, and I was like, wow, what is this? And like my mum had been she was a lecturer at LIPA in the very early days of that Steins, which was the Liverpool Institute of Performing Arts. So music was like kind of a part of our lives, but we never like listened to the radio loads when I was growing up. So it was like a kind of dip in and dip out kind of music, even though it was like fundamental and there. And so coming to like a festival for the very first time at that age was like eye-opening. And a couple of my friends were there who had been for a few years, and that given like my mum the courage, because she had like mum pals, and they were like, no, it's great, it's a really safe place for kids and stuff, like you should definitely come. So my mum just trialed it with me and left my sister with my dad at home, because she was like 4 years younger. And then my mum one day like sat at the pyramid stage and was like, right, I'm going to set up a camp here, and you go off with Joe and Liz, watch whatever music you want to see, just come back here in like 3 hours just so I know you're all right, and just check in. I was like, oh my god, wow, okay.
Freedom.
And so I just like went off and saw like I remember seeing Jessie Malin and Imogen Heap and all these, like just like didn't matter what the genre was, it was like crossing over everything. And so I think that's had the huge impact of like you can experience everything from like folk to hip hop to metal to like dance all in like 45 minutes.
Yeah,
if you walk
exactly
fast
that
enough.
because you just bouncing.
Yeah, so I think massively that's impacted, and just in like the term of like you can carve your own journey within that festival, and that's like super, that's what I've kind of taken away from it. And I think taking that into like a more kind of DIY or grassroots kind of level is like what I hope that I've done, maybe, or like do, or promote, I guess.
Continue to do and
so
still do. Yeah. So then festivals, large gatherings of people, fast forward to 2021, or fast forward to 2020 first, and beginning of March, middle of March, no mass gatherings, festivals, kind of thinking about whether we were going to happen or whether we were not. Clubs, definitely not happening. Bars, definitely not happening. And then fast forward to 2021, and we are still in the same place. So how are you projecting? Because you're working on the Manchester International Festival at the moment. So how can you plan for this event?
$1 million question. It's really difficult. Like,
Nightmare.
I've never worked in a like situation like this ever, and I hopefully we won't have to again. It's really very, very hard. And I think obviously Sounds from the City has been impacted like twice now for 2 years because we're the first kind of festival in the season. So 2021 we've had to cancel already because we know that by the time May the 2nd comes around, there is no chance that we can gather 3,500 people into tiny pubs and barbershops and churches and community centres like we do.
Too close, no social distancing.
Exactly. And we just, as a grassroots festival, we just don't have the resource to be able to do it. So that's kind of, well, it's heartbreaking, because we had our last festival was our 15th birthday, and our next one's going to be our 18th, and that just feels like such a gap. But yeah, hopefully we'll get there. Yeah, if we can ride the wave, we'll get there. In terms of MIF and Festival Square, I think we're in a really fortunate position actually, in the fact that we're working on a new site, and we're lucky enough that every year we kind of don't reinvent the wheel, but we change the layout. And because we're on a new site, there's even more of an imperative of changing the layout. And so naturally we can implement things like social distancing guidelines from the very start, and we don't have to work within a quite rigid structure, and we can manipulate that structure to fit whatever we have to work within. But it's still really hard because there's so many ifs and buts, and what I like to call the shifting sands of like being able to plan, because we don't know what the guidance will be in July. It also might change halfway through the middle of July, through the middle of our 18 days of the festival. So it's just planning with loads of flexibility in mind. But the thing that's driving me through it and making it worthwhile is the idea that so many musicians haven't had a platform to perform on for like well, by that point it'll be nearly 18 months.
Yeah.
And that's what's driving me forward, of just like, well, this is worth it, because this is going to provide at least a platform. I don't know to how many people yet, or like, yeah, all that kind of stuff, but at least there'll be something.
Also, it's imperative that something like this happens for the people, because if we haven't, then neither has anybody else. And how important do you think this kind of social event is for community spirit, mental health?
Yeah, like crucial. I wouldn't be sat here doing this job if it wasn't important to it. Like, Sounds is a community festival through and through. Its spirit is there, and without that connection, we can't see a way we can fully exist online, because that is just not what it's about. For example, and I think some things can be delivered online, but there is nothing that beats that, like, feeling that you get from not even bodies being super close together, but bodies being in the same room having the same experience. And that room can be an outside field, like it can be whatever, but just seeing other people that you don't even know having a similar experience is like huge, just for development. Like, if we don't have those types of connections, we just become super insular and just within our bubble. Literally, I hate the word bubble now, but like previously that made sense. I know you can't without thinking about rule of 6 or something.
I know.
But yeah, like it's that like echo chamber, isn't it? And the more that we are forced into like these kind of digital realms, the smaller that chamber is going to become. And so it's really important just for like informal education to be surrounded by strangers in a unified space. And I think music has the power to unify people. And so events like this are crucial to development and movement.
And in your opinion, is it important that the government take on that message in order to kind of circumvent any sort of illegal activity? I mean, obviously what I'm talking about is like this bubbling under, young people getting bored, having parties for 30, 40 people in their halls of residence, or 150 people in a Birmingham bar. How important is it that the government starts to listen to the official people and kind of releases the manacles a bit?
Yeah, I mean, I'm dumbfounded that they still haven't. I mean, I think like we're sat here on the 19th of February, so obviously there's a announcement next Monday, which hopefully gives us a bit of a roadmap that forward to, so that we can start to understand when these things will potentially reopen. And I know that they keep saying it's all about data and not dates, and I get that, but like also giving people something to hold on to or think about, or just even exactly will kind of stop that kind of underground like frustration. And so I think it's really important, and I think it's fitting that for the first time in like over a year, Boris Johnson uttered the word nightclubs last week for the very first time. And so I think, it's really, we're one of the biggest, I think we are the biggest industry within the UK, or the second biggest industry within the UK. And for us just to have been totally ignored as an industry is just stupid. Like,
and
actually,
told to retrain.
It's like, it just does not make any sense whatsoever. And it also sadly doesn't surprise me. But I hope that something is going to change soon, because it has to, because otherwise it will get out of hand.
So, has there been a knock-on effect on the way that artists deal with being asked to do these things?
To be honest, I've found so far anyway that there's been quite a lot of flexibility, and for me, I stand by where we were at in 2019, and so I'm not offering, when I'm making offers to artists, I'm not going any lower, and in fact I'm going higher, but not to like exponential higher, because also organizations have been hit. So I don't ask people to do things for free, ever, and I try to get as much money into the pockets of artists as humanely possible, because it's crucial, because otherwise I'll have no job if there's no artists to support, because they've all had to go and retrain. Like, it's all about the kind of the cycle, and the God, the word's totally gone out of my head, but like the
COVID brain.
yeah, totally. Like,
it's horrible.
What's that word? Supply chain. It's all about the supply chain. Every element of the supply chain has to be looked after and maintained. Like, I won't be bartering with like tech companies for like, oh, well, can you do this cheaper because I know that they need the work? Like, absolutely not. Like, stick by 2019 and put it into 2021. But there's also, like, on the flip, that needs to happen back to the organizations. And if everybody just tries to remain where we were and not trying to use people, then I think we'll come out of this in a much more resilient way. Because I've heard facts of kind of like, before COVID, the music industry was worth like 75 billion, and by 2024 it's projected to be worth about 114, and I think that's going to be because of digital aspects to the music world, alongside like a physical one. And I think that probably will impact more of like the high level kind of artists and festivals, and less about the DIY, but that has a trickle down effect ultimately. So I think it's a good thing, if we can start to look at the music industry, like, say, football looked at the Premiership, and we start looking at pay-per-views, doing deals with TV. Like, if, I don't know, Ed Sheeran's tour was on a pay-per-view with Sky, and so you had those like 25,000 people in an arena watching a show, but you also have 50,000 people across the world watching that show. Where's the harm? Like, obviously that impacts, as I say, those higher levels, but it will ultimately trickle down. The conference in the Football League is now worth more than it once was, because the Premiership is worth more, and the Premiership supports the conference, and blah blah blah. It's so I think we have to be sensible right now.
There is a picture of hope there, actually.
Totally. I think if we're sensible and respectful and transparent right now, over the next 12 months or even the next 24 months, it's going to be hard for a while still, but if we can maintain that, then I think the hope is there for the future.
That the live audience will still remain, so that whenever it comes to having a live event, the people that would automatically go to the live event will go to the live event, because there's nothing to replace that feeling of community and proximity when you're enjoying music.
Fully. Like, I feel like, personally, I'm not that into digital streams. I haven't watched loads of them because it's just not for me, and it in fact makes me quite sad, because I just really miss that live feeling. But I do also think, like, actually sometimes there'll be a show that maybe happens in Australia or a festival, and it's like, well, of course I can't get there, so actually that might be a nice opportunity to tune into something. And I think it just opens more doors for people, and like, it takes that word of access, which was such a kind of like on trend hip word within the industry, in like pre-pandemic, of like, how do we make things more accessible, and it was more geared towards kind of like people with disabilities, or kind of health issues. And this then just opens that word up even more to like people who can't travel, or people who don't feel like they can travel. Like, I really worry about the impact of the virus in terms of like agoraphobia and people being nervous about going out, anxieties. And so the further we can open that door to allow people to experience things in the way that they want to experience them, the better for me.
Totally. Can I throw a swear word at you then?
Go on.
How much will the Brexit touring legislation, visas and touring, is that going to impact festivals, events, gigs, nightclubs, you name it?
Yeah, without a doubt.
From where you can see, will it impact the way you work?
Yeah, definitely, like, without a doubt. I mean, I think it's going to, and I mean, so talking about that kind of like digital divide before of like, we'll have these top level artists who then now generate loads, and it kind of becomes the premiership of the music industry.
Absolutely,
and then we have like the conference at the bottom. I think the Brexit is going to add to that as well, and I think we are going to start to see even more of a divide between kind of like just starting out career artists to high level artists, and also within that organizations and festivals. So for example, like Sounds will be hugely impacted by it. We can't afford to be a sponsor, we can't afford to pay for 6 visas to bring a 6-piece touring band over from Spain, for example. Like, we just can't afford it. We have no wiggle room. Like, we don't pay ourselves, like we can't, there's nothing else to give there. And I don't know how we can plan that into future trajectories of kind of forecasting and things. And so we'll probably end up going further down and looking at kind of just UK based, and which I don't think is, I also don't think
it's a bad thing,
which I'll come on to
really
in a second. I think that's a really good thing.
It is healthy.
But often when you have that like smattering of international into like like mainly UK based lineup, and you have like 4 or 5 international names, it raises the profile and therefore raises the desire of the audience to interact with it. So I think just the way that we experience festivals will have to change in terms of like that giving more. So it's like more than just bands on a stage. I think that's going to be really important for those kind of like more grassroots festivals of like, well, what else can we give that we can't give the international? So what's going to fill that gap, if you know.
How do you shift music into experience? Because that's what we've seen in the last probably 10 years of events and gigs, is that this buzzword experience. You know, people want experiences, you know, millennials want experiences. So how do you do that?
I think I've been like the biggest advocate of that throughout everything I've done. Like, I never want to just put a band on a stage. Like, it kind of bores me, even though I love that live experience. And I go see bands on stages all the time. Like, don't get me wrong, I do enjoy it, but I don't want to produce that. Like, I want to produce something that people remember and talk about, and like it's more than just that. So I've always tried to turn things on their heads quite a lot. Like, the shows I used to produce at Isn't a Mill, I'd be like, well, why don't we put the band in the middle of the floor and like then the audience is in the round, or why don't we do like all these projections, or why don't we make everybody dress in white and they become the projection, and like just really like changing things and like quite conceptual and just a bit dumb and silly, but like for fun, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I've been like the biggest advocate of like that experience, and I think that's what we really try to do with Sounds, is like we work with artistic directors each year, and they basically work with us to join the site together. So whether that's like big promenade performances, whether that's kind of like stuff that the audience have to wear, or like kind of weird happenings, or kind of like setting a theme basically, so it's not just music. And then sometimes the musicians also come into that. Like, we did one project once where these informal happenings happened on stages with the musicians that we planned in advance, and there was basically like 5 micro commissions within the work itself, and but the audience, if they weren't there, they wouldn't have known, do you know what I mean? And it just like adds that value. So yeah, it's just, I think there's going to be a lot about interaction moving forward, and like actually involving audiences rather than shouting or like speaking at audiences. It's like a two-way conversation.
Is it possible to create an atmosphere for a live stream?
I mean, that's something I kind of lie awake thinking about every night, of like, how do you do that? And I haven't come across anything yet that has hit the nail on the head at all, other than like kind of rooms that you create with your friends, but that, as I said before, just like is going to lead to that echo chamber. So how do you do that with strangers? How do you do that with like people you don't know? So yeah, I think that's an exploration that is still ongoing, and I think will for a while, but it's crucial that we find a way to work with it.
But it's really funny, I'm thinking I'm seeing a big question mark, and I'm also seeing the cogs whirring in your head like mad. That kind of thing excites you.
Yeah. I love a problem. I wouldn't do what I do if I didn't love a problem. How do you put on a 14-hour festival and bring 160 acts into 23 venues with just 2 people running it? I love a problem.
Yeah, clearly. Clearly love a problem. So how much of your job then is no, and how much of your job is yes? Easy question. Percentages.
Yeah. A yes is probably 90 to 92%, I reckon, and a no is probably a 10 to an 8%, depending on the ideas. I'll always try to find a way to make it happen, and sometimes there might have to be compromising that, but ultimately, like, if there's an idea, I'll somehow find a way and make that a thing. Yeah.
I'm interested then in the no and the yes and the sharing of ideas and collaborations. Is there any idea that you've had that you haven't acted on and you wished you had? And is there any idea that you've had that you've shared with somebody that they've gone and done either before you or that they've gone and done and not credited you for? I'm thinking very much about intellectual property and creative copyright.
Proudest moment for me creatively was working on an event called Orbit, which we did in 2012, and it was part of it was branded under Sounds from the Other City, and we worked with an art collective called Volkov Commanders, and it was in the November of that year, so it was out of our festival cycle, and it was basically, we called it a journey in 7 parts, and we booked seven artists, and with this art collective, we basically took the audience knew the artists who were playing, but they didn't know where they were going to be playing or in what order. And so it was just 150 people, and we took them from one venue to the other. And then it was like, now it's this artist. And with every performance, there was something weird about it. So like one of the performances, the band were playing in a perspex box, and there was like smoke coming out of, like haze coming out of it. And another performance, we had like all these old key kegs, which are like plastic kind of plastic balls basically, and the Volkov Commanders had kind of like decorated them all with kind of like what's the word, like acrylic and stuff, so they were colourful, and you had to watch the band was nod, and you had to stand with your head in this plastic through these like psychedelic colours and all these lights kind of moving around you, so you couldn't really see the band but you could hear it, and it was like super immersive. And so every performance was like really thought about and like curated like that, and we had an ambition to like take that to like New York. We knew a couple of collectives out there, and we wanted to take it to Berlin, and take it to other places because we thought there were real legs in it, and it felt like that kind of experience was too soon for Manchester. Like we only sold 100 tickets, whereas Sound sells like 3,000 tickets.
So the second question, please.
Second one.
I mean, it can be, if it's never happened, it's never happened.
Yeah, but I don't know if it has. Like, I've definitely been involved in nights at the start, and like put a lot into a night, for example, or an event or like an artist, and then that artist has kind of gone on a trajectory beyond that event and never referenced back to the hard work that I'd put in at the start. That's quite painful sometimes. But yeah, so that's happened like on 3 or 4 kind of different occasions, and won't name any names because I totally respect those artists, and I'm really happy that they're achieving really great things. So yeah, I guess nothing's ever been completely stolen, but like little elements of things that I've done have been imitated maybe, but I also think imitation is the biggest form of flattery, so great, that's good. If it can have a long-lasting legacy, that's big tick.
How do you deal with that moment of feeling like, God, you know, do you post it on Facebook? Do you just suck it up? Do you call the lawyers? What do you do?
Yeah, so I guess we've had it actually, I guess, with like sounds as not a concept but as a name. Like there's a couple of festivals out there that I don't need to name the names of that have started after us, that have incredibly similar names to us, and they have bigger budgets, and so their name is bigger than ours because they're able to spread it further through advertising and what have you, and makes us kind of go into the shadows a bit. What do we do about that? Sit there and don't really do anything and just complain about it between ourselves, because this world is one big competition, and I don't want to get into slinging matches. Like it's not my style. And so we just sit back and then create the best thing that we can do and just go, actually, it doesn't matter, they do their thing, we do our thing, it's cool.
And this is all why, well, what I think is why City Life gave you this big award in it was 2020 when you got the award, so tell me about that, please.
Like, still the biggest shock. So
why? Because you're just so involved in everything. It was obvious to me, but
I guess it's because I'm, like I said before, I'm like the sideline person. Like, people don't know who I am even if I've worked with them. Like, it's really weird, but it's also not weird because I put myself in that position. So I feel like I rarely get recognized, or like people know who it is, unless we're like close and we know each other. That's where I feel like people know me, and beyond that circle nobody knows who I am. So to be recognized in like the kind of city's kind of what's on guide or newspaper was like mental, for like being a cultural hero.
Where have you put the award? Is it on the boat?
So it's a certificate in a frame, and it is on the boat, and it's above the toilet. But so it's great. Everyone goes for a wee, and it's like, oh yeah, what's that award about, Riv? So it's
what
not in the
actual
toilet.
title they gave you?
Cultural hero.
Yes, mate.
Yeah.
Yes,
and for me,
mate.
it was the following in the footsteps that like was shocking for me, because it was like people like Sacha Lord, who got it the year before, Maria Bolshaw, Simon Moran, like these people who just inspired me to like go forth with my ideas, had all won it at very like different levels in their career. Like, I feel like I'm just starting out, like, even though I've been doing it for like nearly 15 years, I still feel I'm young and I'm just starting out, and like for that recognition to come was like such a shock. Like,
can you go back on that list of the people that came before you again, and then I'm going to hit you with something. Go on, what was the list? Who were the people that came before you?
So Sacha Lord, founder of Parklife, Warehouse Project, Night Czar, all-round great spokesperson for Manchester, and the bloody UK's nightlife of 2020, was the 2019 winner. Then there was Maria Bolshaw, who at the time director of Whitworth and Manchester Art Gallery, and now director at Tate Modern in London, which is mental. And Simon Moran, who is the owner of SJM. And I can't remember the other two.
Are you the youngest winner?
Youngest winner, only the second female, and the only person of LGBTQ.
LGBT, exactly. That's why I'm
representation. Yeah.
To me, that was such a fantastic win, and representing in so many different ways, and you deserve that.
Thank you so much.
You 100% deserve that award.
Thank you. Like, I found it really difficult to come to terms with it this year, and actually I find it quite disabling, because I often compare myself to people, and for a while it like totally just went, what? Like, now there's expectation, there's pressure, and it's taken me ages to go, actually no, I got it for what I've done, not for what I do.
There's two more things I want to discuss: education and politics. Let's do politics first, because you said LGBT, and also when you were at school and you were 8, you kind of petitioned for culottes. How important is politics in everything you do?
Like, it's there underlying and underpinning every decision you make, and yeah, I think it's really important to be politically aware and to create platforms and moments where people can engage, whether they understand that they are engaging or not. And having a viewpoint is important, but also crucially understanding other people's viewpoints is just as important, whether that's something you agree with or not, because it opens your mind. So yeah, massively.
And music and politics, is it okay to link music and politics? Because I know you've had a lot to do with Manchester Pride as well. So is it okay to link music and politics, or should they be kept separate?
No, like, yeah, definitely. Like, the history of music comes so much from politics and kind of experience of bad politic. Yeah, it's, as I said before, like, music is like a platform for people to speak, and it's a place that unifies people at the same time. And yeah, so I think it's really important. And sometimes it's really obvious, and sometimes it's more subtle. And I think both are important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the two support each other. I mean, you see that even in, like, say, like the US presidential election, and it's like which musician is going to support which president,
Yeah.
and that has a huge impact then on, like, the kind of the polls and the popularity of the presidents and their campaigns. And so it just shows the strength of music, because it's more commercially driven and more accessible for people, but it can also be the in for people to politics if it's utilized in the right way.
You have a position at the Institute for Music and Management, BIM.
Yeah.
So what do you do there? This is the education I want you to.
Yeah.
How did you get into that, and what do you do?
So I am a lecturer in event management for the third year students at BIM, and that came about just, I think there was an opening, and I knew a couple of people who teach there already, and I think what BIM do is really amazing in the fact that they teach through experience rather than teach through understanding teaching. So they're not teaching the teachers the content, they're teaching us how to utilize the content that we already have so ingrained in us, and deliver that to students.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. Like, I wish I'd been able to have that kind of education growing up. Instead, I went to loads of really awful free conferences, and listened to quite often some terrible panels,
speakers,
and made loads of notes, which is important, equally as important. But I do wish that I'd been able to just spend time with somebody working in the industry to tell me all these different aspects of it, and then make an informed decision based on it. So yeah, I've been there for 18 months, and it's been really exciting, actually, like, seeing some of the students and then seeing where they go to next. Like, just the other day I had an email from, I was booking a band for MIF, or potentially booking a band for MIF, and one of the manager of the band was one of my students from last year. I was like,
amazing.
This is great, like, fantastic. Good. Like, I'm so glad to see you're already in the industry, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how that, like, transpires over the next few years. Like,
good.
Yeah, feels a little bit like following in my mum's footsteps, because that's what she did, and, like, she's still got, like, loads of friends in the industry and stuff, and, like, yeah, often now doing really huge things. So yeah, it's like, yeah, I'm excited about the future, because they feel like they're more switched on than maybe we were growing up as well. So the next generation is hopeful.
Well, you've mentioned your mum a lot. Was she a massive influence in your life? Which one was more the influence in your life, your mum or your dad?
A 50-50,
Right.
which is, like, really cheesy and, like, corny to say, but yeah, my dad taught me, like, the patience and the kindness and the kind of sidelines and the observation, and then the drive and the perfection as well. And, like, I'd come home and I would be like, yeah, I got 98% in my exam. He's like, where's the other 2%? And he kind of said it as a joke, but it, like, yeah, always striving for more came from my dad. And my mum, and just, like, the passion to, like, music and the passion for supporting people as well. Like, she came from a dance background originally, and teaching was integral to that. And yeah, like, coaching and mentoring is, like, a huge thing for her and through her career, and, like, supporting mid-career artists and small career artists has been important to her as well. So that yeah, a real good divide there between the two. I'm very, very, very lucky and grateful.
Good. Now I want you to have a little think about what music has influenced you, past, present, and future. So
Past, gosh, so
3 tracks.
3 tracks.
Yeah.
I guess, like, yeah, over the years I've gone through the genres, so starting Blur and Oasis, going into like Trevor Nelson, listening to him religiously, and then harking back to like disco, and so all those kind of genres have like melded throughout my life, and constantly changed. But a track that recently, like in the last like 12 months, I've just been reliving my disco phase again in a big way. Like just dancing in the kitchen to disco is just like one of the finest things in life. And yeah, Gwen McRae is just like a proper inspiration. Like I remember walking into an electric chair event after I'd been doing the door, and I walked in with Chris Massey, and he was like, "Oh, go in for half an hour if you want. Like we were like the door's closed, so let's go and have a dance." And I walked in, and a Gwen McRae tune was playing, and everyone was like tops off, and I'd been like shivering outside because it was like Boxing Day or whatever. I was like, wow, this is magic. So the one that's been like on repeat at the minute is Keep This Fire Burning.
Oh, amazing.
It's like that thing in the corner, and it's like, yeah, so it's been like really fun, and it's just, and also
everybody
like,
loves that.
Yeah, and if we think about the music industry, like that, the words in that song are so important right now. Like we've got to work to keep it going. So yeah, Keep This Fire Burning, Gwen McRae is like, yeah, massive inspiration, past, but also right now in this present moment.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and then I guess present would be an artist called Planning to Rock, who I have been a huge fan of for years, and actually performed as part of that Orbit event we did in 2012. But they are just, yeah, an incredible artist, originally from Bolton, now, well, was living in Berlin, and recently has moved to Tallinn, I believe. But they released a track in the middle of last year, or just at the start of lockdown, I think, actually, called Jam Fam. And it was a record or EP that they'd created for the Chanel catwalk of the Spring Summer collection. And they're trans artist, and I just think super, super exciting, really wear their heart on their sleeve, and I'm lucky now to call them a friend as well. And so every day inspired by Jam, aka Planning to Rock. So yeah, that's a really great present artist. And then future, like I'm just so happy and excited about the scene that we have in Manchester at the minute. And so I'm like kind of torn between 2 tracks here, so I'm going to be cheeky and mention
you can have
both.
4.
You can decide which one goes on the playlist. But yeah, so there's an artist called Pip Millett who I think now like lives in London but is very proudly Mancunian, and she released a track called Heavenly Mother last year on her album, and I just think, yeah, it's just sublime, and like I send that to my mum, and it's just like super incredible like soul song. And then Swing Ting, their latest album, which obviously again was just released just before lockdown. There's so much stuff coming out. It's
so much.
So frustrating. But they collaborated with Love Scene, or Pops from Love Scene, on a track called Signs, which I really, I like listen to that album a lot, and that's like a real kind of standout track, just because I think they're 2 tour de forces of Manchester just going.
I think I'll put both of those. I'll put a little bit of both of those tracks on. I think it's fair.
Nice. Thank you.
Fair. That's a beautiful selection. I get the sense that your time is really limited. I haven't even talked about your dog.
Not Alan.
No.
Dog called Alan and a cat called Egg. That's all we need to know.
Well, that's right. Thank you for bringing them into the room. Thank you for giving me so much of your time and your energy and just your positivity and hope. Thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for your time, and thank you for being such a beautiful person, Riv.
Thank you. Honestly,
I want to see you and give you a massive big hug in person. So once we've all been vaccinated, I'm gonna do what I normally do and just pick you up and spin it around.
Yeah,
so
I can't wait for that moment. Yeah, I can't wait.
All
But
right,
no,
take
thank
care.
you for giving me the time, and like thank you for being an inspiration and for being there to be able to perform.
And here to you, Riv. Stay safe. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Take care, darling. Have a really
See you
good
soon.
weekend.
Yeah, will do.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.